The recent balance patch turned standard format completely upside down. The Hearthstone team ruthlessly dismantled most of the meta's dominant leaders. Predictably, this led to the creation of a brand new competitive environment where the former top dogs no longer have a place. In this video, we take a close look at all the dramatic drops and unexpected rises in usefulness experienced by Hearthstone's most valuable legendary cards. We'll answer the question, is it finally time to get rid of Fyrakk and reclaim 1600 dust, or is the card still worth keeping? We'll identify the cards that lost their top-tier status and discuss the best legendaries to craft, including those valuable for wild format. In short, you're about to see the most complete overview of the current competitive landscape through the lens of legendary card utility.
Time to rock and roll!
Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
The recent balance patch was a cold shower for the competitive scene. Strategies that had been consistently supported by developers for a long time were struck down without mercy.
We were curious to see how this shift affected the numerical usefulness of the most prominent legendary cards. Which cards managed to remain relevant, which ones lost their influence, and which suddenly found new life in the meta. But most importantly, we wanted to know whether the patch boosted the usefulness of new legendaries and whether it increased the overall impact of across the timeways.
To answer these questions, I collected data from roughly 8,000 of the most popular post-patch builds and sent everything to the boys for analysis. They then compared it with the post-release week to pinpoint the most significant changes.
For several years now, we've relied on our utility index algorithm to track the usefulness of Hearthstone's legendary cards.
This percentage-based metric shows how important a card is to the game as a whole and helps determine its crafting priority. It is built on a wide set of factors. Win rates, including average deck win rate, played win rate, and performance at the legend rank, card popularity, importance to the class, flexibility, and its value in wild format. Combined, these give us the most objective picture possible.
Guys, let's not waste time and start with the cards that took the hardest hit from the latest balance changes. For me, the biggest mystery is the shift in Fyrakk's usefulness. This card dominated the meta from day one thanks to an effect similar to Yogg Saron. Such a powerful effect became a magnet for abuse and combos designed to activate it as early as possible. The nerf not only increased the cost from 9 to 10 mana but also reduced the power of the effect by lowering the total spell cost threshold from 20 to 15. My impression was that after this change, the card became completely dead.
Dora, that impression is completely wrong. In terms of usefulness, its utility index dropped from 89% to 84%. Meaning it lost only 5% of its utility. In the overall crafting priority ranking it now sits at position 16.
However, the card did experience a massive shake-up. Its former greatness is entirely gone, and its presence across all ranks fell from 30% during the post-release period of Across the Timeways to just 6% after the nerf. Its popularity at legend rank was nearly astronomical, over 40% of decks used the card, whereas now it appears in just over 3%. And yet, the card remains effective and useful across a broad variety of standard builds, even though its role is no longer as central as before. Its weakness has always been its low usefulness in wild format. There, just like before, it is nearly invisible but locally competitive. Ultimately, from an absurdly powerful meta-defining card, Fyrakk has, despite the brutal nerf, remained in the great category thanks to its phenomenal versatility. At the same time, the new version is far more balanced and no longer dictates the meta. At this moment, it is still a very useful card, and we recommend keeping it in your collection.
Another painful nerf hit the Warlock quest. The developers effectively reversed their previous buff by making the completion condition harder and increasing the reward's cost, and this turned out to be fatal for the deck. You can no longer complete the quest on turn 4, which makes the strategy far too slow for the current competitive environment. The card lost 48% of its usefulness and dropped into the bad category, now sitting at rank 98. Only 1% of Warlocks still use it. Meanwhile, the deck's overall win rate across all ranks is disappointing. I initially planned to keep this card, but now I see there's no point. The card became far too weak, and dusting it is a good idea. The developers were extremely merciless toward the Lost City of Ngoro expansion. They effectively killed the few things that were still working. Another victim was Quest Paladin. This strategy had already lost significant influence after the expansion's release. dropping from 75% utility to 37%. After the nerf, it lost an additional 13% and moved to 84th place in the overall legendary rankings, falling straight into the weak category. The card's only advantage is that 9% of Paladin players still use it. Its popularity is very low, and while its win rate is competitive, this mostly applies to lower ranks. Among the most popular builds at Legend rank, we couldn't find Quest Paladin at all. I believe the card may have potential after rotation, but at the moment the best decision is to dust it and get your full resources back. If the trend changes, you can always craft it again.
Now let's talk about the cards that benefited the most from the balance changes and whose role in the meta has increased dramatically.
The biggest spike in utility came from Maestra, Mask Merchant. After the nerf to Fyrakk, a card around which rogue gameplay was often built, players rushed to find new ways to play the class. Maestra began appearing in more than half of all rogue strategies, which led to a record utility increase of 54%. The card now holds 33rd place in the craft priority ranking. But there is one important drawback. The average win rate of decks that use Maestra is low, and the situation becomes even worse at Legend rank. Despite that, the card has become critically important for the class, and it's impossible to ignore this fact. Shaman deserves separate attention. Hagatha, Shutterblock, and Turbulus all climbed into the top 10 highest priority craft targets. This happened thanks to the explosive popularity and power level of Hagatha Shaman. The utility index of each of these three legendary cards now exceeds 90%. Their usefulness increased by almost 40% after the patch. These cards dominate nearly every Shaman strategy, perform extremely well, exert massive influence on the standard meta, and are also valuable in Wild. Overall, Shaman might easily become the next candidate for nerfs. Continuing with Shaman, we must highlight Muradin, High King. Players voted this card as the strongest in the set according to the community compendium. It showed high utility right after the expansion launched, but after the balance patch it completely took over every Shaman strategy. It is now the class's single most important card. It boasts impressive popularity and performance across all ranks. Its only drawback, compared to the other top Shaman cards, is that the strategies using it are not particularly competitive in Wild. This is the only reason it ranks 13th on the overall craft priority list.
Loagash Bloodfighter has experienced the opposite trajectory. The community initially rated it as the weakest Fabled card. But over time, after release, it became an essential part of Dragon Warrior. The influence and performance of this archetype only increased after the balance patch. Today, Dragon Warrior is fully meta-defining. Loagash ranks 31st overall with a utility index of 70%. Why not higher? The card has two drawbacks. The lesser issue, it has no applications in Wild. The more serious problem, it has low flexibility and is used only within Dragon strategies, which limits its usefulness outside that archetype. For example, it found no place in Quest Warrior. Naturally, this affects the overall utility score. Still, Loagash holds a high, undeniable position in the current meta. Sky Mother Aviana has similar efficiency metrics. After the balance patch, the card began playing a crucial role for Druid, increasing its class presence to 70%. This is a golden age for the card. It has never been this important before. Yet its overall meta impact remains localized, and its performance is not particularly impressive. Its win rate at Legend sits below 50%. The main issue is that Druid currently has no sufficiently competitive strategy in Standard.
Let's briefly discuss several other new legendary cards that deserve your attention. Gelbin of Tomorrow has fully secured a dominant role in most Paladin decks. The balance patch did not increase its usefulness, but it maintained its previous metrics, which is already a solid result, especially considering that the aura strategy slightly weakened due to the nerf to metal detector. Gelbin even finds occasional niche use in Wild, but its main weakness is shared with many new legendary cards. The higher you climb the ladder, the more sharply its effectiveness drops.
The balance changes did not help Talanji of the Graves. Over a single week, the card lost 9% utility, largely due to the decline of the Heron strategy. Despite this, the card remains visible within the class and appears in every second priest deck. The weaknesses are the same: no usefulness in Wild and a significant drop in competitiveness at Legend. Garona Halforsen also lost part of her utility but remains strong overall. She is still in the top 30. The card plays a key role in Rogue and appears in nearly 80% of Rogue decks. It is used across many strategies, but the issue is that its win rate in Wild is much higher than in Standard. and this inflated wild performance is the main reason the card remains so high in the overall ranking. In Standard, things look much worse. If players fail to find a dominant rogue strategy, Garona's decline will continue. We were really hoping that Chronolord Delos would lose relevance after the mech warrior nerfs. But unfortunately, the opposite happened. His utility has actually increased. The reason is simple. The card is extremely flexible, and players continue to experiment with it across different strategies. Most notably, Protoss Mage adapted it with great success, creating a new, uncompromising OTK interaction. That deck has been poisoning Standard on and off for a long time already, but now it's at the peak of its toxicity, and it's genuinely exhausting. Chronolord Delos currently sits at 9% popularity across all ranks with a 53% win rate. As with many new cards, its performance drops below 50% at Legend, yet its play rate remains just as high, entirely thanks to its dominance within Protoss Mage. A truly awful card that makes destructive strategies even stronger and more popular.
Another unexpected winner of the expansion is Broxigar. Initially perceived as mediocre, the card turned out to be far more useful than expected. It even managed to enter the top 10 highest priority craft targets. After the patch, its utility grew by another 16% and now sits at 90%, an extremely rare achievement for a class card. Why is the score so high? Nearly half of all Demon Hunters run the card, which is enough to grant it near maximum class importance points. After release, the card was used primarily in shopper or peddler lists, but now it appears in a growing number of experimental strategies. This expansion grants Broxigar maximum flexibility points. Its overall win rate isn't extraordinary, and at Legend it drops significantly, but the card earns almost maximum points for wild usefulness, where it is more popular than in Standard. If you play Demon Hunter, you have very few arguments left to ignore this card. But the best new legendary card of the expansion is Ranger General Sylvanas. No surprises here. The community rated her extremely highly in the pre-release period. She became an almost universal tool for Hunter, appearing in 56% of its decks. Her primary home is Discover Hunter, which gained substantial influence after the balance patch. This card has no weaknesses. It is efficient, popular, and flexible. Moreover, its presence in Discover Hunter was record-breaking immediately after the patch, yet the card still managed to maintain positive performance at Legend, a rare achievement among the new cards.
This review would be incomplete if we ignored a card that isn't central to the new meta, yet managed to achieve something extremely rare.
Party Planner Vona is the only legendary card that had been completely useless for a long time, but after the release of Across the Timeways it found a second life. This is an exceptionally rare case. It's common for cards lingering on the periphery of the meta to occasionally become noticeable or, in some cases, even gain solid popularity. But a full comeback from complete irrelevance happens almost never. With a utility index of 32%, the card sits at 68th place overall, which aligns with its niche status. It's used in some effective Shredslock builds, but it isn't a key tool, more of an optional component. Even so, these builds remain competitive at higher ranks. In short, if you already own this card, now is the perfect time to put it to use.
To wrap up our discussion of the most useful cards, here's a look at the complete list of the highest priority cards to craft. No major shifts here. Elise the Navigator remains the single best card in the game. Syliax Deluxe 3000 is close behind, but please remember that it will rotate out of Standard in just a few months. For convenience, I've marked all cards leaving Standard in black and white. The top 3 is rounded out by the legendary spell Sheldrissel.
Now after talking about the strongest cards, let's highlight several cards that suffered the biggest loss of utility after the balance patch. Even though they weren't directly targeted by the nerfs, the most dramatic decline was experienced by Tortola. In just 1 week, the card's utility dropped by 58%. After Mech Warrior was effectively deleted, Tortola remained playable only in a few unpopular versions of Quest Warrior, which suffer from poor efficiency. Another major reason for the decline is the nerf to Chemical Spill, which previously allowed the card to be played as early as turn 5. Without a built-in mana cheat, Tortola is forced to rely on its base stats, which are simply too weak in today's meta. Since its release, Tortola has never been as helpless in Standard as it is now.
For similar reasons, Oppu the Unseen has lost its value. The card used to shine as a tool for finding key combo pieces. But once Rogue lost the ability to generate coins and its mana cheat tools were weakened, tools often used to abuse Fyrakk the Blazing, the card lost its purpose. The same is true for Shaman. Without ways to accelerate the card, it simply stopped being interesting to players.
Summoner Dark Marrow lost 29% utility. This tourist gave Warlock access to Death Knight cards. But after the nerf to Corpsicle, players now have far fewer reasons to use it. Its presence has sharply declined, especially at Legend rank, and its efficiency has deteriorated to merely competitive. Even so, 65% of Warlocks still play the card, and it holds the 43rd place overall. Sylvanas suffered heavily after the nerf to Sparkling Phial. All that remains of its former strength is 22% utility. The Sylvanas strategy has nearly vanished from competitive play, though it remains viable at lower ranks. Finally, let's talk about Inventor Boom. This is, by itself, a very powerful card thanks to its broad mech synergy and turnaround effect. It allows you to neutralize the opponent's advantages and create your own threats. But under current conditions, that wasn't enough. Players use the card almost exclusively to abuse specific mechs and multiply their value. Once Testing Dummy lost its explosive potential, Inventor Boom essentially disappeared from competitive play, retaining only a small presence at lower ranks. It's surprising, but the usefulness of such a powerful card ended up depending entirely on a single combo strategy. Once that strategy suffered, the card became irrelevant.
Let's sum everything up. Even though the meta has changed dramatically, the Across the Timeways expansion itself has not brought us any new surprises. The list of competitive strategies hasn't gained anything truly new. The few things that looked promising during launch week mostly became even stronger.
But the main problem remains. The higher you climb the ladder, the weaker the new cards become. In the previous video, we discussed in detail which packs are the most efficient to buy and promised to update our recommendations if anything changed significantly. In terms of overall impact, the presence of Across the Timeways cards has, as expected, dropped to 11%. The balance patch shattered the temporary equilibrium between sets and firmly pushed Perils in Paradise into the lead. If we look at the crafting cost of the most impactful cards for Legend gameplay, Perils in Paradise is once again the clear winner. What surprised me is that despite the heavy nerfs to Lost City of Ngoro, the total crafting cost of its most effective cards didn't drop that much. Meanwhile, Into the Emerald Dream looks even worse for purchasing now, as it suffered much more from the balance changes. The updated data confirms that our earlier recommendations remain fully relevant. You can watch our pack buying guide to choose the optimal strategy for yourself.
We're now preparing a fresh update on the usefulness of cards across both standard and wild metas. If you're interested in a full analysis of all legendary cards from Across the Timeways, a complete crafting priority list, or an evaluation of community and YouTubers' predictions, please let us know in the comments.
We have many ideas for new videos, but due to the beginning of large-scale power outages in Ukraine, we'll need to focus only on the topics that are most important, and your activity will help us understand what those are.
Finally, our traditional poll will be about the current state of the meta after the balance patch. Even though new strategies didn't gain much presence in Standard, the competitive environment now feels completely different. Personally, I enjoy this transformation. What do you think? Are you satisfied with the current state of the meta?
Let us know your thoughts below and join the polls in your community tab. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to support our content and stay updated.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.